Chapter 1. The Quiet Girl in the Break Room. The soft hum of fluorescent lights filled the office like a low, mechanical sigh. Ethan Carter sat at his desk, eyes fixed on the glow of two monitors displaying spreadsheets and lines of code that blurred into abstract patterns. The rhythmic clicking of keyboards and the occasional burst of forced laughter from the sales team served as white noise to his focused mind. This was his comfort zone. Predictable, structured, detached. The world outside could be chaotic, but here, in the stark symmetry of numbers and logic, he could breathe. Until he saw her again. Lily Matthews. She was there, seated alone in the break room as usual, her lunch untouched. Her hair, dark, almost ink black, was tied into a low ponytail, but a few strands escaped and framed her pale face. She wore oversized sweaters, even in warm weather, had sleeves that swallowed her hands as if she were hiding something. Her posture was always slightly hunched, as if she were trying to disappear into herself. Ethan had noticed her from the day she started, a few weeks ago. Noticed, but never approached. It wasn't just her quietness that set her apart. It was the kind of silence she carried. Not the shy kind, but the weighted kind, like a ghost of something unspoken following her everywhere. Today was no different, until he heard the voices. "She gives off creepy vibes," someone whispered near the hallway. "Like, I said hi and she just stared at me like I wasn't even there. I heard she doesn't even have social media, probably some catfish or ex-cult member." The words sliced through Ethan's concentration. He wasn't the kind to involve himself in office gossip, but something about their tone, the way they snickered and leaned in, feeding off each other's cruelty, twisted his stomach. He glanced back toward the break room. Lily was still there, staring blankly at a cup of tea in her hands, unaware of the ridicule. Or maybe she wasn't. Maybe she heard everything, and just chose to stay quiet. Before he could think it through, he stood. His chair rolled back with a soft scrape, drawing no attention. Quiet as ever, he walked to the break room and paused at the doorway. "Lily?" he said gently. She blinked up, startled. Her eyes were wide, a piercing gray that seemed both exhausted and sharp. "Yes?" "Hey, Ethan shifted awkwardly. This was stupid. He was never good at small talk, let alone impulsive gestures. "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" There was a pause, long enough to make him question what had possessed him to say that out loud. She stared at him, confused. "Dinner? I just thought it might be nice, to get out of here, away from all this." He gestured vaguely to the air, encompassing the fluorescent hum, the judgmental whispers, and the sterile walls. Lily's expression didn't change right away. She studied him as if trying to gauge whether it was a trap or a joke. Then, slowly, carefully, she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Tomorrow night?" "Sure. Yeah," Ethan said a little too quickly. "There's a place I like, Leona's. Quiet, kind of tucked away." "Leona's," she repeated softly, tasting the name. For the first time since she arrived at the company, he saw something flicker across her face that resembled amusement, or maybe curiosity. She stood. "All right, tomorrow then." The next day passed in a haze. Ethan told himself it wasn't a date. It was a kind gesture, a friendly dinner, a harmless attempt to make someone feel less alone. But the way his chest tightened as he walked into Leona's said otherwise. The restaurant was warm, dimly lit, filled with the comforting scent of roasted garlic and bread. He sat at a corner table, heart ticking a little faster with each minute that passed. Then he saw her. Lily. But not the Lily he was expecting. She wore a fitted navy coat with gold buttons, her hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. She looked different, more poised, more confident. Her eyes met his across the room, and for a moment, he almost didn't recognize her. She smiled, a real one, not just the polite curve of lips he'd seen at the office. Ethan stood as she approached. "You look not like me," she finished for him with a slight tilt of her head. "I was going to say different." She slid into the booth across from him. "I dress down at work. It's easier that way." Ethan didn't press. He just nodded, trying to recalibrate. This version of Lily threw him off, but not in a bad way. There was something magnetic about the quiet confidence she now wore like armor. They ordered dinner, pasta for her, something with grilled salmon for him. Conversation started hesitantly, but Lily surprised him again. "You ever feel like you're living a double life?" she asked between bites. "Like the person everyone sees during the day is a mask?" Ethan paused. "I used to, before I stopped pretending I had to be anyone else." She gave a small nod, thoughtful. I'm working on that. There was a long silence. Then she spoke again, her voice softer now, like she was peeling away a layer. I left my hometown 6 months ago. Haven't been back. I don't really talk about it. Ethan listened. There was someone, a guy. We were together for a while, and it got complicated. Her fork pushed food around the plate. At first, he was charming, the kind of charming that makes your skin itch. You know what I mean? Ethan nodded. And then one day, he changed. Suddenly, I was the only thing that mattered to him. He isolated me, made me question myself, said things that sounded like love but felt like control. Her eyes never left the plate, but her voice didn't waver. I left without telling him, just packed a bag, changed my number, got a job here through a friend who owed me a favor. Ethan leaned forward, elbows on the table. And now, she said, finally looking up, I pretend to be invisible because being seen feels dangerous. He didn't speak. He didn't offer platitudes or tell her she was safe. He just let the silence stretch, warm and patient. And for the first time, Lily smiled again. This time, a smile with weight, a smile born of shared understanding. They finished their meals, walked outside. A chilly wind swept down the street, rustling leaves and hair. Lily pulled her coat tighter. Thank you, she said, looking up at him. For what? For seeing me. Chapter 2, A Meal Full of Half-Truths. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her, not just Lily, though she filled more than her fair share of space in his mind, but the version of her that emerged over dinner. The poised, vulnerable, careful woman who spoke of darkness with an unsettling calm. The version that didn't match the timid girl in the oversized sweater, shrinking in her cubicle, trying not to be seen. There was more to her story. That much was clear. And it wasn't just the typical pain of a breakup or the bruises left behind by bad love. No, Lily carried something deeper, like she was watching the world from behind a window, wondering if it was safe to step out. Ethan had seen that kind of look before. He just never thought he'd care so much about seeing it on someone else. The next morning at work, everything went back to routine, almost. He passed Lily in the hallway. She was in her usual clothes again, neutral colors, loose fit, sleeves too long, but something in her eyes flickered when she saw him, a soft, cautious spark. She nodded. He nodded back. It was brief, ordinary, but it felt like a pact. That night, Ethan found himself replaying their conversation again. Her words, being seen feels dangerous. What exactly had she been running from? Who was this ex-boyfriend she mentioned, and was he really still in the past? He knew better than to push. But something told him that silence wouldn't keep Lily safe forever. The following Friday, they met for dinner again. Lily's suggestion this time. I found this place, she'd said quietly by the coffee machine that morning. It's near the edge of the park, has fairy lights in the windows, felt safe. Ethan liked the way she said that, like the word safe still held value for her. The bistro was tucked behind a florist and a closed-down bookstore. It was quieter than Leona's, with string lights above each table and pale candles flickering in mismatched holders. Ethan spotted Lily waiting outside, her hands shoved deep into her coat pockets. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, but not in the usual casual way, more like relief. Hey, he said. Hey. They stepped inside, the warmth of the space instantly drawing a relaxed breath from them both. They chose a small table in the back, beside a window fogged over from the evening chill. They ordered tea and soup, simple, comforting. Ethan decided to let her lead the conversation this time. So, Lily said, swirling her spoon, I used to paint. That caught him off guard. Really? She nodded. Mostly abstract stuff, colors and shapes, things I didn't have the words for. Why'd you stop? Her gaze dropped. Because he said it was childish. Ethan stayed quiet, heart tightening. He used to say I should grow up, that I wasn't serious enough, that I'd never get anywhere by splattering paint on canvas like some lost teenager. And did you believe him? Ethan asked softly. For a while, she admitted. Then I just stopped questioning it. You'd be surprised how easy it is to disappear when someone tells you who you are every day. Ethan's hand curled around his teacup. And now I'm trying to find my way back. She looked up, meeting his eyes. Maybe it's stupid. It's not, Ethan said quickly. It's brave. A silence fell between them, not awkward but deep. It was the kind of silence people only shared when they knew it was safe to leave some things unsaid. As the night wore on, Lily grew more comfortable, letting little pieces of herself unfold like pages from a closed journal. She told him about the small town she left behind, a place where everyone knew everyone and forgiveness had an expiration date. About the art teacher who once told her she had a gift, about her mother who hadn't called since she left, and about her ex, his name still unspoken. Ethan never asked, but her words hinted at more. She'd say things like, he didn't like me having friends, or he always had a way of turning things back on me. There were too many implications in between the lines. He wanted to ask if she felt safe now, if she'd truly escaped. But instead he said, you don't have to tell me everything at once. I'm not here to collect your pain like it's a story. Lily blinked, startled by the gentleness in his tone. I just want to know you, he added. The parts you're ready to share. That, finally, made her smile. After dinner, they stepped outside into the crisp spring night. The sky was painted in indigo and silver by city lights blending into the stars. They walked in silence for a few blocks. No rush, no pressure. Then Lily stopped suddenly, her gaze frozen on something or someone across the street. Ethan turned to follow her line of sight, but by the time he looked, the man in the shadows was already gone, just a dark silhouette slipping into a car. Lily's face had gone pale. Everything okay? Ethan asked carefully. She hesitated, then nodded too quickly. Yeah, just thought I saw someone I knew. He didn't push, but the tension in her shoulders hadn't eased, and she kept glancing over her shoulder the rest of the walk. Ethan filed that moment away, just like he'd been filing away the inconsistencies, the way she jumped at loud sounds, how she always chose the seat facing the door, how she avoided elevators when she could. This wasn't over, and whoever that man was, Ethan had a feeling he wasn't part of her past anymore. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He opened his laptop and stared at an empty email to HR, fingers hovering above the keyboard. A part of him wanted to request access to Lily's emergency contact, just to make sure she had one, just to know someone, besides him, was looking out for her. But he didn't send it. He wasn't her savior. He had no right to intrude on her life. And yet, the next day at work, he caught Lily staring out the office window, lost in thought. Her phone buzzed on her desk, and her hand flinched as she silenced it without checking the screen. Something wasn't right. And Ethan Carter, who'd spent his life avoiding drama and emotion, suddenly couldn't walk away from it. Not this time. Chapter 3. Puzzle Pieces. Ethan had always been good at patterns. He made his living analyzing systems, connecting loose threads, identifying red flags before they turned into crises. But no spreadsheet or algorithm had ever prepared him for Lily Matthews. She was a puzzle made up of jagged pieces. The more he learned, the more he realized how much was missing and how dangerous the missing pieces might be. Ever since that night outside the bistro, Ethan had been paying closer attention. Not in an invasive way, he hoped, but in a way that said, I see you. I'm here if something's wrong. And something was wrong. He could feel it. Lily was trying hard to pretend nothing had happened, but the shadows under her eyes were darker. The way she held her phone tighter when it buzzed had become more pronounced. She hadn't mentioned the man she saw. She hadn't spoken of her ex again. But Ethan hadn't forgotten. The next Friday, they didn't go out. Instead, Lily invited him to her apartment. I don't usually do this, she'd said over lunch, twisting the sleeve of her cardigan between her fingers. Invite people over. Ethan's brow lifted slightly. Are you sure? She nodded. I trust you. 2 words. Simple. Heavy. Dangerous. When he arrived at her place that evening, he wasn't sure what to expect. The building was old but charming. Brick exterior, ivy clinging to the side. The kind of place that had character and 2 thin walls. Lily met him at the front door, barefoot, dressed in a navy sweater that hung off one shoulder and soft, worn jeans. Come in, she said with a small smile, stepping aside. Her apartment was small and tidy, but full of life. Art books stacked along the floor, blank canvases leaning against the wall, a few half-finished paintings with bold, chaotic colors. A worn armchair faced a cluttered coffee table where mugs and candles sat in quiet cohabitation. This is you, Ethan said as he looked around. It feels like you. I hope that's a good thing. It is. They settled on the couch, cross-legged, sharing takeout straight from the containers. It was easy at first, light teasing, stories from work, jokes about their boss's obsessive use of bullet points. But somewhere between chopsticks and laughter, The air shifted. Lily grew quiet. Do you ever feel like your brain is waiting for something bad to happen? She asked suddenly, not meeting his eyes. Ethan didn't answer right away. Yeah, he said eventually. More than I'd like to admit. I hate that part, she whispered. Like no matter how calm things are, your body's still bracing for the explosion. Is it getting worse? A pause. Then, sometimes, I think he's watching me. Ethan's stomach dropped. The ex? She nodded. Have you seen him? Her voice was barely audible. Just once, maybe twice. I don't know if it's really him or if I'm imagining it, but that night outside the bistro, I think it was him. I saw the way he stood, the way he turned his head. Have you reported anything? No proof, she said flatly. No bruises. No messages. Just a feeling. The cops don't do much with feelings. Ethan clenched his jaw. You shouldn't have to live like this. Lily met his eyes for the first time in minutes. I know, but when you've lived with someone who can make you question your own memory, your own instincts, you start to wonder if you're being paranoid or just broken. You're not broken, Ethan said quietly. You're surviving. The silence stretched again. Ethan didn't push. He simply reached across the couch and took her hand. Careful, gentle. She didn't flinch. In fact, she gripped his hand like it was the only solid thing in the room. Later, as the sky darkened outside her window, Lily brought out a box. I want to show you something. She placed it on the floor and opened it slowly. Inside were fragments of a life she hadn't shared before. Photographs, notes, receipts, torn sketches, crumpled letters. At the very bottom was a flash drive. This is everything I saved from before. Ethan picked up a photo. It was of Lily, maybe 2 or 3 years younger. Her hair was longer. Her smile was stiff. Next to her stood a man with pale eyes and a cruel, empty grin. That's him, she said, voice thin. Blake. Ethan memorized the face. I kept records, she continued. When things got really bad, I started documenting it. Voicemails, texts, photos of the damage he did to my apartment. But when I left, I was too scared to take it to the police. I thought I'd finally escaped. You still can, Ethan said. We can go through this together. See what's usable. Lily looked up, eyes glimmering with tears. Why are you doing this for me? Because I care, he said, and because you shouldn't have to fight this alone. They spent the next 2 hours reviewing the files. Ethan took notes, copied evidence, and stored everything on a separate drive with encrypted backups. He wasn't an expert in legal matters, but he knew enough to recognize a pattern of harassment and emotional abuse. There were threatening messages, dozens of them. A video where Blake shouted off camera, demanding she come home, and a voicemail that chilled Ethan to the bone. You think you can run, Lily? That I won't find you? You're wrong. You belong to me. Don't forget that. Lily trembled as it played. Ethan reached for her again. He won't touch you. Not again. I promise. As midnight approached, Ethan stood to leave. He didn't want to. He didn't want to leave her alone, but Lily insisted she'd be okay. I've taken precautions, she said. Locks, cameras, a neighbor who checks in. But the way her eyes lingered on him told a different story. Ethan hesitated at the door. If you ever feel unsafe, I want you to call me, day or night. I will. He started down the stairs. Then, Ethan? He turned. Lily stood in the doorway, the hallway light casting a warm glow over her silhouette. I'm really glad you asked me to dinner that night, she said softly. So am I. He left with a heart heavier than it had been in years, but also somehow more alive than ever. Because now he understood the stakes. And he wasn't just a kind stranger anymore. He was part of her story. And he wasn't going anywhere. Chapter 4. The city was restless that night. It wasn't storming, not exactly, but the clouds hung low and bruised, promising rain that never came. The kind of night where the wind didn't howl, it whispered. Threats, secrets, warnings. Ethan walked briskly through the downtown streets, his laptop bag slung across his chest, coat collar turned up against the biting chill. It was late. He'd stayed at the office far too long, and catching up on reports he could barely concentrate on. His mind wasn't on work. It was on her, Lily. Her name had become a quiet refrain in his head, the way she said thank you, like it hurt. The way she flinched at sudden sounds, but still smiled through it. The night they spent on her living room floor, sorting through shadows and calling it progress, she was trying to be okay. But Ethan had the growing sense that someone was circling her again. Earlier that week, Lily had messaged him during work. Lily, hey, do Do you ever get the feeling someone's watching you? Like, seriously watching? Ethan hadn't liked that, not one bit. He replied immediately. Called her. She picked up after the second ring, voice time. I'm probably overreacting, she'd said. It was just this guy. I saw him across the street from my building. Hoodie, standing still, not smoking, not on his phone, just looking. And when I glanced back again, he was gone. Ethan hadn't been able to breathe for a second. You need to report that. I don't want to seem paranoid. What if it's just some random guy? Then it's a random guy. But if it's not, you'd rather regret calling it in than not, right? She hadn't replied to that. And now tonight, with the wind scraping down the alleyways and a knot tightening in Ethan's gut, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. He decided to take the shortcut home. Not the smartest choice, but the fastest. And honestly, he wanted to walk off the anxiety crawling under his skin. The alley behind Broadmoor Avenue was narrow and mostly deserted, lit only by flickering street lamps and the occasional distant sound of a bus or siren. He adjusted his pace, footsteps echoing too loudly against the damp pavement. Then he heard it. A scrape. A shuffle. Ethan slowed. There, half-shadowed beneath a metal stairwell, stood a man. He was tall, lean, dressed in a dark hoodie and jeans, face obscured by the low hood. He wasn't moving, just standing, watching. Ethan kept walking, heart hammering now. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just some guy waiting for a friend. Maybe, pretty girl you've been seeing, the man said suddenly. Ethan froze. The voice was low, gravelly, calculated. What did you say? The man stepped forward, still in shadow. Lily Matthews, right? Ethan's fists clenched before he knew it. Who the hell are you? The man didn't answer, just grinned, the shadows slicing across his face like a mask. She's got a habit of running her mouth to the wrong people, telling stories, painting herself the victim. Back off, Ethan warned, voice sharp. Stay away from her. She never told you the whole story, did she? The man murmured. Ask her why she really left town. Ask her what happened the first time she ran. Ethan took a step forward. If you come near her again, I'll report you. I have everything you've said recorded. It was a bluff, but the man paused. Then he chuckled, low and dark. She's going to destroy you, just like she tried to destroy me. And with that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness of the alley like smoke. Ethan stood frozen for a full minute, heart pounding so loud it was all he could hear. Then he fumbled for his phone and called Lily. She didn't pick up. Not the first time, not the second. By the time she answered, Ethan was already in an Uber heading straight to her apartment. Ethan? Her voice was groggy, like she'd been sleeping. What's wrong? Lily, listen to me. Don't open your door for anyone. Keep your phone on you. I'll be there in 10 minutes. What happened? I ran into someone. I think it was him. A beat of silence. Then, softly, what did he say? Ethan hesitated. He said, things. About your past, about how you left. Lily didn't reply, but her breath hitched audibly through the speaker. I need to know, Lily, Ethan said gently. What haven't you told me? When he arrived, she was waiting by the door, face pale, wrapped in an oversized hoodie like armor. He stepped in. The lights were off, save for the small lamp on her desk. She looked up at him, eyes wide and shadowed. What did he look like? Ethan described the man in detail. Lily sank onto the couch, visibly shaken. That's him. That's Blake. He said you weren't telling the full truth, that you destroyed him. Lily laughed, bitter and small. Of course he said that. He always does. That's what abusers do. They rewrite the story. Ethan sat beside her. Then tell me the real one. So she did. She told him about the first time she ran. How Blake had been charming at first, protective in a way she'd mistaken for love, then controlling, then cruel. How he made her quit her art classes because the instructor was looking at her too much. How he smashed her phone when she tried to call her sister. How he isolated her, tracked her, threatened her with stories of what he'd do if she left. I finally did leave, she whispered. Took cash from a friend, left everything else behind. I had to lie low for months, changed my number, moved here. She looked up at Ethan, eyes glassy. I didn't tell you all of it because I didn't want you to think I was damaged goods. Ethan reached out and gently touched her cheek. You're not damaged, Lily. You're surviving, and I'm not going anywhere. She let out a shaky breath. I'm scared, Ethan. If he's really here, I don't know what he'll do. Then we stop waiting for him to make the next move. Ethan said quietly, we document everything, report everything, And if he tries anything, we make sure the police have something to act on. Lily nodded slowly, visibly trying to hold herself together. I'm with you, Ethan said, all the way. Her voice broke as she whispered, Thank you. And for the first time, she leaned into him fully, letting the tension spill from her body as his arms wrapped around her. They sat like that for a long time, and holding on to each other as the city whispered outside. Neither of them said it aloud, but they both knew the storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. Ethan and Lily's worlds were colliding, their paths unraveling in ways neither could have predicted. But the road ahead was still long, filled with danger, secrets, and the kind of raw emotional truth that can either break or rebuild a person. What happens next will change everything. The danger is far from over, and both Ethan and Lily will have to confront their deepest fears and desires. But there's more to uncover. So make sure to subscribe for part 2 of He agreed to have dinner with the girl no one wanted to date, but when she arrived, he couldn't believe his eyes. The story is just beginning, and the real twists are only just starting to unfold. Stay tuned for what's coming next.